In this episode, I'm going to go back a few years and we're going to work on an old AC Delco radio out of a 1964 Pontiac. The owner of this one, of course, vintage cars, they have to keep the original radio and everything's got to be kept original. This one apparently doesn't work, so we're going to take a look at it. As you can see, I've just got the basic radio here. It's a super deluxe model. This would have been made in Canada by General Motors themselves. They made all their own stuff. So it looks to be in pretty good shape. We're just going to pull the top off this thing and we'll hook it up first of all and see if it does anything. And then we'll proceed and see if we can get this one going. This should be an interesting one. Now these units are all held together by a series of 1/4-inch hex screws. So I just happen to have a 1/4-inch nut driver here. And a couple of screws on the top should just lift off this unit. There we go, that's the top. And now we'll take off the bottom. Get a look in the bottom of this unit. These screws here have insulators on them, these two. They got rubber insulators on them, so the screws themselves are insulated from, there's a mica or paper insulator here that insulates the heat sink from the back. I believe if I remove these ones, the back, the bottom, and the back should just lift off of this thing. I should just pull back a bit. It should just slide open like that. So this is an insulator on the back here because this is going to be the radio itself is negative ground, but this heatsink here is obviously not grounded. So here's the bottom of the radio, and here's our input 12 volts, speaker, and ground. So I can connect my 12 volt power supply up to this thing, connect up a speaker, and if things are working, I should have sound. So I'm just setting my power supply for 12 volts. So I've got the speaker connected. We'll connect up the power leads now, 12 volt. And the ground line, and we'll see if this thing turns on. That's a good sign. It actually is giving me some noise. I got my antenna hooked up to it as well. Let's just see whether we can get any noise out of this thing. I don't have much in the way of an antenna on this thing, so. I would say it works. That's my test transmitter, right? Controls need cleaning. A lot of noisy electronics in there. I'm just going to go grab a piece of wire and we'll throw it out the door. So I'm hearing all this noise and I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm using a switching power supply to power the stupid thing up. I wonder whether it's the power supply that's making all that noise. Only one way to find out. Let's power it up with a 12-volt battery. 12 volts.
Hurry into your Lower Mainland Jaguar authorized retailer for details. But don't delay. Timing is everything. Offers end April 2nd.
This radio works. Actually works not bad.
Unlimited interactive.
Just adjust the antenna adjustment here.
That means you can send money anytime to anywhere with confidence for free. Sending money to your dog walker? Done. Sending money to your BFF or your college-bound niece? Done and done.
Okay.
On the go Interact e-transfer.
So there, we just learned something, guys. If you're servicing a car radio, don't use a switching power supply. I hooked that thing up and I wondered, why is there all this noise? And it didn't take me long to click, for that to click, that you know, that was probably where the noise was coming from, because I shut everything else down in here that generates noise. Like I had the plasma monitor going. And I thought for a minute, wait a minute, I bet you it's the power supply.
Additional charges may apply. Visit luckymobile.ca, Wireless Wave, T-Booth Wireless, or Walmart for details.
No.
There's my even without an antenna, I'll probably do okay.
Love down by the Blazers. And I'm going to poke it free to Ronning in the right circle. Ronning scores! Ty Ronning through the legs of Dylan.
Presets aren't set to anything. We'll fix that. Where are we here?
Listen, you're absolutely right. His 60th goal, only 5 since 2000.
So to set these things, we just pull them out and then push them back in. Whoops. How did I do that?
In the WHL this season to accomplish that feat. And you're talking about Jaden Halpke, and I'll give you this quick stat.
That should hold it. Push it in.
On 24.4% of his
There,
shots.
now just save that one.
Running 0.6% of his shots. Running for most of the season has led the Western Hockey League on goal. A little fitting that in game 2000.
See what else I can get on this thing. I don't have. I have like a 6-inch piece of wire for an antenna. Should get news 11:30, I would think.
One box. And there's plenty of custom options too. Call or visit us online for details and to place an order. Or just drop in and pick up a Butcher Bundle today. $99 Butcher Bundle. MeridianMeats.ca.
And give chase, left wing corner, trying to elude Bowen Byron. Now at the side, back at the point, puck deflected wide. Good work by the Giants.
Oops.
Run
Lost my power there. Or my speaker I lost.
8th goal of the season.
the celebrity of SUVs. It's yours.
Get the next one here.
Radio Care Canada. Radio Care Canada, where Canadian radio plays.
Your selection do the talking for you. For any room in your home, discover your next piece at Jordan's Interiors. See their collection at jordans.ca.
Pre-approved days are on.
Safety plan specifically for your strata or commercial property.
never a bad time. $60.96.
4 games. And for all of the great...
We'll clean this control. We'll clean the volume control. Battery's probably getting a bit low. I wonder if I can put this on and charge at the same time. Nope. That power supply can't be used around this thing. This battery's not charged, by the way. It's pretty low. So I guess this unit's good. It's good. It's sounding fine.
Goes to the Owen Hardy. Will play it up the right wing. He looks like a bump from Chizowski. Giants fail to clear. Dug free by Chizowski. Left wing wall. Owen Hardy.
So I think I can put this unit back together. I'm just going to secure the battery so I don't end up with any short circuits here. So we'll put the battery cap back on to protect the positive. And I'll put this thing back together. I think this radio is okay. All it really needed was the volume and tone controls cleaned up a bit. Everything else seems to be working just fine on it. Now sometimes this 3-stage capacitor goes bad on them from time to time, but it doesn't appear to be in bad shape on this one because it's picking up all the stations, even which I'm just using. This is what I was using as an antenna. I was just using that, right, as an antenna. Seems to be working just fine. And even with my 400 milliwatt transmitter sitting just a few feet away from it, I was able to pull in some distant stations without getting any swamping. So let's put the back cover on it. This is the bottom here. So this piece goes on, slides in place like that. We have to get it under the front cover here. Okay, as we reassemble the unit, we've got these screws that have got the rubber grommets on them. That's to insulate the back heatsink from the back of the chassis. So we have to make sure our insulator sheet here is that the holes are clear, and then we can thread in the screws. And this way they are isolated from the chassis. Another screw to go in the back here, and then the two that hold the base on. The top cover. Made in Canada. General Motors of Canada, Oshawa, Ontario. Super heterodyne receiver, 540/16 kilocycles, made in Canada. Yes, and printed in Canada too. Top cover goes in place like that. Tabs lock into place. And that should just snap on there like that. The last two screws to hold it together. See, these vintage car collectors, they have to keep the cars original. They need the original radio in them. So that's where I see the odd radio. I was hoping this was going to be a vacuum tube one, but GM went to solid state in 1964. 60 to 63 were tube radios, but this one here is a solid state. But there it is, back together. So I did find a schematic for this thing in case it was needed, but as it turns out, from the time I heard all that horrible noise, I went and looked up and printed the schematic, and as I say, while I was printing the schematic, I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, maybe it's my my Chinese switching power supply that's causing the noise, and sure enough it was. This is one of those instances where you want to have a linear power supply for this type of stuff, but I do even better. I use a battery when I'm working on car radios a lot of times for that reason. These switching power supplies are fine for more modern electronics, but there's old AM radio receivers that were designed for a car running off of a battery. They don't have much in the way of filtering to take out ripple that was never there, because of course back when these things were made we didn't have switching power supplies. Anyway, here's our front end. Okay, it's a single transistor RF amplifier. We have our mixer converter, so our oscillator converter here converts down to 262 kilocycle IF, so first IF stage. We have our IF amplifier in our second IF stage, and just a simple detector diode. This goes A and B, which connects over to the other schematic over here. So here's our tone control and our volume control here, and our audio amplifier, audio driver, and power output. So it's 6 transistors, but hang on to this for future reference, because I had a bit of a search to find this, but I didn't need it. Anyway, as I say, it's back together, working great. Guy that owns this will be happy. He'll be able to put it back in his collector car and get it back on the road for the summer. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again in the next one real soon.